If you've ever had that weird feeling that someone was making you do things you didn't want to do, or if you've left a conversation feeling guilty without even knowing why, stop everything you're doing, because this video could completely change your life. What I'm about to show you are 6 foolproof ways to spot a manipulative person, and if you recognize at least 4 of them in someone close to you, you need to take action today. Have you ever had that feeling that something wasn't right in a relationship, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? You know when you realize you always give in during arguments but are left with a bitter taste in your mouth afterward? Well, that's no coincidence, and I'm going to explain exactly what's happening. That moment when you walk away from a conversation thinking, how did I even agree to that? Or when you notice you're always the one apologizing, even when you did nothing wrong. If this sounds familiar, you're probably dealing with someone who uses manipulation techniques to get what they want. And the first sign, which is also the most obvious one that everyone ignores, is they make you feel guilty for everything. You know that feeling you've had when someone makes you feel like a horrible person just because you said no to something? Well, that's not normal, and I'll tell you why. The manipulative person has an incredible ability to turn any situation into your fault. You set up a date and they show up late. They'll find a way to make it seem like it was your fault for not reminding them of the time. You express a different opinion? They'll make you feel like you're being insensitive or selfish. If you've ever heard phrases like, "After all I've done for you, you always do this to me," or "I can't believe you're being so selfish," watch out. That's already a strong sign of manipulation, and I'll explain why. The manipulator uses guilt as a control tool because they know empathetic people can't handle the feeling of hurting someone well. So they turn it into a powerful weapon to get what they want. When you feel guilty, you automatically want to do something to fix the situation, and that's exactly when they get you. Why does this happen? Because the manipulator understands that most people have a natural sense of empathy and responsibility. They exploit these positive traits and turn them against you. It's like they have a manual on how to make you feel bad to get what they want. Sound familiar? If this has happened to you, you're not alone. Millions of people go through this every day without even realizing they're being manipulated. Sign number 2, they always play the victim. Have you noticed that some people always have a sad story to tell? No matter what happens, they're always the poor little thing in the situation. If you're the kind of person who always ends up comforting someone who's supposed to be supporting you, pay close attention to this sign. The manipulator has an impressive ability to turn any situation into a personal tragedy where they're always the innocent victim. You confront them about something that bothered you. They'll immediately start talking about how hard their life is, how nobody understands them, how they always try their best but never get recognized. Ever heard them say things like, "Everyone abandons me. I always try to do my best but it's never enough," or "You don't understand what I'm going through"? Be careful, because this is one of the most effective emotional manipulation techniques. That conversation that was supposed to be about solving a problem between the two of you magically turns into you comforting this person and apologizing for attacking them when they were already going through a tough time. Sound familiar? What I'm about to say will make you think of someone. The manipulator never takes responsibility for their own mistakes. They always have an external justification. There's always someone or some circumstance that forced them to act that way. And what's most striking is that they tell these stories with such conviction that even you start believing they're truly a victim of circumstances. Why does this work? Because when someone presents themselves as a victim, our natural instinct is to protect and care. We automatically let our guard down and shift our focus from our own issue to helping this person who's suffering. It's a brilliant move, but extremely toxic. The problem is that this person will never solve their problems because they don't admit they have problems. In their mind, the whole world is wrong, except them. And while you're there trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved, they keep using you emotionally. If this has ever happened to you, leave a comment sharing how you realized you were being used emotionally and help more people identify this situation. Sign number 3, they use silence as punishment. You know that person who, when they get angry, just stops talking to you. It's not the normal silence of someone who needs to process their emotions. It's a cold, calculated silence that leaves you desperate trying to figure out what you did wrong. If you've ever caught yourself begging someone to talk to you, sending message after message trying to find out what happened, or if you've spent hours trying to guess what your mistake was, you've probably dealt with a manipulator who uses the silent treatment as a weapon. That strange feeling you get when someone just disappears from your life without explanation after a minor argument is a huge red flag that can't be ignored. The silent treatment is one of the cruelest forms of emotional manipulation because it plays with one of human beings' basic needs, the need for connection and resolution. When someone stops talking to you out of nowhere, your brain goes on high alert and you become obsessed with trying to fix the situation. Everyone pretends not to notice, but this behavior is a form of pure control. The person who does this knows exactly what effect they're having on you. They know you'll chase after them, that you'll humiliate yourself, that you'll do anything to break this unbearable silence. You've probably heard someone say, "I'm fine," with that icy tone that makes it clear they're not fine at all, or "it's nothing," but with an attitude that screams it's a big deal. This isn't healthy communication, it's psychological manipulation. Why does this happen? The manipulator uses silence because they know most people can't handle unresolved conflicts. So they create an artificial conflict and refuse to resolve it, forcing you to do all the emotional work. The most vicious part is that when you finally manage to break this silence, you usually end up apologizing for things you didn't even do, just to get back to normal. And that's exactly what the manipulator wants, you submitting without them having to take responsibility for anything. But hold on, because the next sign will shock you even more. Sign number 4. They distort reality and make you question your own memory. Have you ever had an argument with someone and later found yourself thinking, did it really happen that way? Or, am I going crazy? If you've ever left a conversation questioning your own mental sanity, pay close attention because this has a name: gaslighting. This is one of the most dangerous manipulation techniques because it directly attacks your confidence in your own perception of reality. The manipulator denies things they clearly said, makes up conversations that never happened, and makes you question whether your memory is working right. I bet you've been through this. You're absolutely certain someone said something specific, but when you mention it, that person swears up and down they never said it. Even worse, they make you feel like you're crazy for making up these things. Remember that time you felt you were being deceived, but the person was so convincing in their denial that you started doubting your own senses. This isn't normal, and is one of the most serious signs that you're dealing with a dangerous manipulator. Have you heard phrases like, "That never happened," "You're imagining things," "You always exaggerate everything," or "You're too sensitive"? These phrases are classics from the playbook of those who practice gaslighting. The goal of this technique is to make you lose confidence in your own ability to interpret reality. When you no longer trust what you saw, heard, or felt, you become completely dependent on the version of reality that the manipulator presents to you. Why is this so effective? Because our mind naturally wants to make sense of things. When there's a contradiction between what we remember and what someone is telling us with great conviction, it's easier to question our memory than to accept that this person is blatantly lying to us. Gaslighting is especially common in intimate relationships because the manipulator knows your insecurities and knows exactly how to play with them. They'll use personal information you shared against you, making you believe that your feelings and perceptions aren't valid. What I'm about to tell you now is frightening. People who practice gaslighting can do it so subtly that you don't even realize it's happening. They start small, denying insignificant little things, and gradually escalate until you're questioning your own sanity. And if you thought that was intense, just wait for the next one. Sign number 5 is the one most people ignore, and get this. Sign number 5. They isolate you from the people who matter to you. Have you noticed that there are people who always have something negative to say about your friends and family? There's always some flaw they find in the people who are important to you. If you've noticed that your social circle has been shrinking since you met someone, that's a red flag that can't be ignored. The manipulator knows that your support network is your greatest protection against manipulation. Your friends and family know you well enough to notice when something's wrong and alert you to toxic behaviors. That's why one of the manipulator's first strategies is to distance you from these people. If you're one of those people who started drifting away from friends because they don't understand your relationship, or because they only speak badly of the person you chose, be careful. This could be a very well-orchestrated manipulation. That feeling that you need to choose between your old friendships and your new relationship isn't normal. Healthy relationships integrate into your life. They don't force you to abandon everything that existed before. Everyone who goes through this thinks, it's just a phase, or when my friends get to know him better, they'll understand. But the manipulator doesn't want to be known better by your friends. They want you to distance yourself from them before they have a chance to alert you about their behaviors. Have you caught yourself making excuses not to go out with friends because you know you'll have to hear comments about this special person? Or have you cancelled family commitments because he feels uncomfortable in those situations? This should be a warning sign, not something normal. Why is isolation so effective? Because when you're alone, without your support network, you become totally dependent on the manipulator. They become your only source of validation, approval, and companionship. And when you're in that vulnerable position, it's much easier to accept behaviors you would normally reject. Isolation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process, where the manipulator plants seeds of doubt about the people around you. They'll say your friends are jealous, that your family doesn't understand you, that only they truly care about you. And the cruelest part is that when you finally realize what's happening, you've often already lost contact with the people who could help you. Then you feel truly alone and trapped in that toxic situation. What I'm talking about isn't normal jealousy or common insecurity. Normal jealousy is a feeling that the person recognizes as their own and works to overcome. Manipulation is when someone uses seemingly logical arguments to make you believe that distancing yourself from the people you love is the right thing to do. Now pay attention, because this next one could save your life. Sign number 6. They have two completely different personalities. Have you ever met someone who was an angel in front of others, but a devil when alone with you? This is one of the scariest characteristics of manipulators. They're masters at wearing social masks. If you're thinking, wow, that sounds a lot like me, you're not alone. Millions of people have experienced the confusing ordeal of dealing with someone who seems like two completely different people depending on who's around. You know that person who's funny, charismatic, and caring in front of friends, but when you're alone, they turn cold, critical, or even cruel. Or the one who posts on social media as if you have the perfect relationship, but at home treats you like you're a nuisance? That strange feeling of knowing two different people in the same body isn't your imagination. It's a clear sign that you're dealing with someone who uses different personalities to get what they want in different situations. What impresses me most is how these people manage to maintain these masks for so long. In front of your family, they're polite and charming. At work, they're exemplary colleagues. On social media, they're perfect partners. But in private, when there's no audience, they show who they really are. This happens because the manipulator understands that their social reputation is crucial to maintaining control over you. If people around saw how they actually treat you, they would help you get out of that situation. So they invest a lot of time and energy building an impeccable public image. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, if I tell someone how they treat me, nobody will believe me because they're so beloved by everyone? That's exactly the intention. The manipulator builds this reputation as a trap for you. Why is this so confusing? Because our minds want to believe that people are consistent. When someone is kind publicly, we expect them to be kind privately too. So when there's this discrepancy, we tend to question our own perception rather than accept that this person is deliberately using two personalities. The most dangerous part is that this person will use their public personality as proof that they're a good person. They'll say things like, "Everyone loves me, the problem must be you." Or, "Ask anyone, I'm known for being an amazing person." And you get stuck in this mental confusion because you truly can't reconcile these two versions of the same person. You start thinking that maybe you're bringing out their bad side, or that maybe you're actually the problem. This technique is especially cruel because it makes you question not only your perception of reality, but also your own worth. You start believing that you only deserve the bad version of this person, while everyone else deserves the good version. If you've recognized at least 4 of these signs in someone close to you, I've got news. You're probably dealing with a manipulative person. And if you recognized all 6, the situation is serious, and you need to take action immediately. But hold on. Before you panic, let me give you a statistic that will put your mind at ease. Recognizing that you're being manipulated is already 80% of the solution. Manipulation only works when you don't know it's happening. Now that you've identified the signs, the burning question is, now what do I do? It's no use knowing there's a problem if you don't know how to fix it, right? That's why I'm going to give you 4 practical actions you can start doing today. Action 1. Document everything. What to do? Start writing down all the strange situations that happen with this person. This includes conversations, broken promises, moments when you felt confused or guilty for no reason. How to do it? Use your phone's notepad or a physical notebook. It doesn't need to be elaborate. Just write down the date, what happened, and how you felt. For example, 11 to 15. He said he never promised to pick me up from work, but I clearly remember the conversation. I felt confused and questioned my memory. Why it works? Manipulation works because it distorts your perception of reality over time. When you document the facts, you create an objective timeline that can't be altered by memory. Plus, seeing everything written down makes patterns more obvious. Action 2. Reconnect with your support network. What to do? Reach out to friends and family you've distanced yourself from. Be honest about what's happening and ask for help to see the situation from an outside perspective. How to do it? Start with one person you trust the most. You could say something like, I know I've been distant lately and I'd like to talk about some things that are happening in my life. Would you have time to listen without judgment? When to do it? Do this as soon as possible, but choose times when you're alone and have privacy to speak freely. Why it works? Manipulative people isolate their victims precisely because they know an outside perspective can break the illusion. Your friends and family know you well and can help you see behaviors that have become normal but aren't healthy. Action 3. Establish clear boundaries and consequences. What to do? Define behaviors you won't accept anymore and clearly communicate what the consequences will be if these boundaries are crossed. For whom? For people who still have hope of improving the relationship but want to try establishing healthier rules. How to do it? Be specific and direct. Instead of saying, I don't like it when you treat me badly, say, if you yell at me, I will leave the room and will only talk when you can speak in a normal tone. And most importantly, follow through on what you promised. Expected outcome. Either the person will respect your boundaries and you can have a healthier relationship, or they'll show their true colors by trying to break these boundaries. In both cases, you gain clarity about the situation. Action 4. Learn to trust your instincts again. What to do? Stop constantly questioning your own perceptions and feelings. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. How to do it? Every time you get that gut feeling or sense that something isn't right, stop and ask yourself, what exactly made me uncomfortable in this situation? Write down the answer and don't let anyone convince you that you're overreacting. For whom? For anyone who has experienced gaslighting and is having difficulty trusting their own perception of reality. Expected outcome. Over time, you'll regain trust in your instincts, and it will be much harder for any manipulator to deceive you in the future. Emergency action. If the situation is critical and you feel in emotional or physical danger, leave the situation immediately. Go to a friend's house, a family member's, or seek professional help. Your safety is more important than trying to save a toxic relationship. But there's one thing I need to make very clear. Leaving a manipulative relationship is not easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things a person can do. Why? Because the manipulator has spent months or years conditioning you to believe that you need them, that no one else will love you, that you can't live alone. These beliefs don't disappear overnight. Even when you rationally know you need to leave, emotionally you still feel connected to this person. It's normal to feel fear, guilt, longing, and even love for someone who has hurt you. This doesn't mean you're weak or stupid, it means you're human. The important thing is to understand that these feelings are the result of the psychological conditioning you've undergone. It's as if you were hypnotized and are now waking up. The awakening process can be confusing and painful, but it's necessary. One thing many people don't understand is that manipulative relationships create a kind of chemical dependency in the brain. When the manipulator is kind, even if rarely, your brain releases a massive dose of dopamine because you've been waiting for affection for so long. This creates a vicious cycle where you become addicted to these rare moments of kindness. That's why many people return to toxic relationships even knowing they're harmful. It's not because they're masochistic or stupid, it's because they're literally addicted to the cycle of tension and relief that characterizes manipulative relationships. Knowing this, be patient with yourself during the process of breaking free. You may have relapses, you may feel the urge to go back, you may question if you're making the right decision. This is normal and part of the process. Now, let me tell you about something nobody talks about. After you leave a manipulative relationship, you'll go through a period I call emotional detox. During this period, you'll feel a strange mix of relief, sadness, anger, fear, and even longing. You'll have days when you feel free and powerful, and others when you question if you did the right thing. You'll remember the good times. Yes, there were good times, otherwise you wouldn't have stayed so long, and you'll romanticize the relationship. This is completely normal. What you need to do during this period is constantly remind yourself why you left. This is where those notes I told you to make become essential. When the longing hits, read your own words describing how you felt in those difficult moments. It's also important that you don't isolate yourself during this period. I know that after a manipulative relationship, you might be feeling ashamed, as if you were stupid for staying in that situation for so long. But that's exactly what the manipulator wanted you to feel. The truth is that anyone can be a victim of manipulation. Smart people, successful people, independent people, no one is immune. Manipulators are experts at identifying vulnerabilities and exploiting positive traits like empathy, loyalty, and the desire to help others. So stop blaming yourself for being manipulated and start congratulating yourself for having the courage to leave. This requires immense strength that not everyone has. Now let me give you some practical tips for the first days after leaving a manipulative situation. First, don't make important decisions in the first 30 days. Your brain is still chemically rebalancing, and you may not be seeing things with complete clarity. Second, establish simple routines that give you a sense of control. It could be something basic like making your bed every day or showering at the same time. After having your autonomy controlled for so long, regaining control over small things is an important first step. Third, practice saying no to small things. Order your food the way you want it. Watch the movie you want to watch. Wear the clothes you want to wear. It might seem silly, but after having your preferences invalidated for so long, it's important to reconnect with your own desires. Fourth, seek professional help if possible. A psychologist can help you process the trauma and develop strategies to recognize signs of manipulation in the future. Fifth, be kind to yourself. You went through something difficult and need time to heal. Don't pressure yourself to get over it quickly or go back to being the person you were before. You might never be exactly the same person again, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. One thing I always tell people is, the manipulator won't give up easily when you decide to leave. They'll try every strategy that worked in the past. They'll play the victim, promise to change, swing between being cruel and being affectionate, try to make you feel guilty. This has a name, it's called hoovering, like the vacuum cleaner. The manipulator will try to suck you back into the relationship using every possible tactic. Be prepared for this and don't fall into the trap. Remember, if this person could or wanted to change, they would have changed during the time you were together. Promises made during abandonment crises are rarely kept. If possible, cut off all contact with this person. Block them on social media, change your number if needed. Avoid places where you know you might run into them. I know this might seem extreme, but no contact is the only way to definitively break the cycle of manipulation. And if you have children together or work at the same place and no contact isn't possible, keep all communication strictly necessary and objective. Don't let yourself be drawn into personal conversations or discussions about the relationship. Use text messages whenever possible because they're documented. Now let me tell you about something that might surprise you. After you free yourself from a manipulative relationship, you might discover you have some patterns of your own that you need to work on. I'm not saying you're to blame for the manipulation, but you might have some vulnerabilities that made it easier for the manipulator to catch you. For example, maybe you have trouble saying no, or maybe you tend to sacrifice yourself too much for others. Identifying these patterns isn't about blaming yourself, it's about protecting yourself in the future. If you've always been the type of person who puts others' needs before your own, it's important to work on this so you don't attract new manipulators. Manipulators have a radar for empathetic, kind people who have difficulty setting boundaries. So part of your healing process will involve learning to balance your natural kindness with a healthy dose of self-preservation. This doesn't mean you need to become a cold or distrustful person. It means you need to learn the difference between being kind and being a doormat, between being understanding and being naive, between forgiving and allowing abuse. And speaking of forgiveness, let me clarify something. You do not need to forgive your manipulator to move on. This idea that forgiveness is necessary for healing is one of the biggest lies our society perpetuates. Forgiveness is something you can choose to do if and when you feel ready, but it should never be an obligation. Sometimes anger is appropriate and healthy. Sometimes keeping someone in the category of person who hurt me and who I don't want in my life is the wisest attitude. What you need to do is process your emotions, understand what happened, learn from the experience, and move forward. If at some point you feel like forgiving, great. If you never feel like it, that's perfectly fine too. Your healing doesn't depend on absolving your abuser. Your healing depends on you reclaiming your self-esteem, your trust in your own instincts, and your ability to have healthy relationships. And speaking of healthy relationships, let me give you some traits to watch out for when you meet new people. Emotionally healthy people respect your boundaries the first time you set them. They don't push, don't make a scene, don't try to convince you. They simply respect. Healthy people take responsibility for their own mistakes without making you feel guilty for pointing them out. They offer genuine apologies when they do something wrong, without trying to justify or downplay their errors. Healthy people encourage you to maintain your friendships and family relationships. They might not love everyone in your life, but they respect that these people are important to you. Healthy people have the same personality in public and in private. The way they treat you when you're alone is the same way they treat you in front of others. Healthy people communicate their needs and feelings clearly and directly. They don't expect you to guess what's wrong, don't throw tantrums, don't use silence as punishment. Healthy people make you feel better about yourself, not worse. After spending time with them, you feel energized and valued, not drained and questioning your own worth. Keep these traits as a filter for future relationships. Don't settle for less than this, no matter how charismatic or attractive a person may be. And one last thing I want you to engrave in your mind. You deserve love, respect, and kindness. This isn't something you need to earn or deserve through your behavior. It's something you deserve simply for existing. If someone treats you poorly, the problem lies with that person, not with you. If someone tries to make you believe you don't deserve good things, that person is lying to you. You don't need to be perfect to deserve love. You don't need to give up your identity to maintain a relationship. You don't need to accept crumbs of affection from someone who should love you completely. End. Now you have no more excuses. You know the signs and you know exactly what to do. Starting today, your life can be completely different if you put these actions into practice. If this video gave you the tools you needed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell because we have many other valuable tips for you. In the comments, tell me, which of these actions will you start doing first? And if you've already been through a situation with a manipulative person, share how you managed to get out and help more people who might be going through the same.